Let's go. Welcome in, everybody, to the Flagship Podcast live on the Horns 24/7 YouTube channel. It is a big Monday. It's not just a big Monday for Texas basketball taking on Baylor. Now it is a number 10 Texas against a number 11 Baylor. Tonight at the Moody Center, Texas trying to bounce back from the loss at now number 2 Tennessee over the weekend. We're going to be talking some Texas football. We've got it all for you and your questions. I mean, most importantly, this is about you all, the Longhorn community, or maybe you're just fans of Taylor or
Chip, not
or
Taylor. Come on.
whatever it is that has caused you to be on the Horns 24/7 YouTube channel with us right now. Welcome in. And there is Taylor Estes. Taylor, how's it going?
I am doing well, Chip. How are you doing?
Hey, I'm fired up on a big Monday to get in touch with our listeners, our readers, our members at Horns 24/7 and all comers. So it's a good chance to talk some Longhorns, football, basketball, baseball. Baseball practice has started, and David Pierce says it's going to be an interesting team, which I don't know what I think about that word interesting, Taylor. A lot of changeover, a lot of new faces. My gosh, Texas recruited 3 players who went pro. That's always a risk for the high profile programs, but a lot of question marks on the pitching staff. At the corners, they lose Ivan Melendez and a whole truckload of home runs, and Skylar Messinger over there at third base. So we'll certainly
We're gonna talk football
questions.
though. Winter workouts, especially, right?
Yeah, winter workouts. Oh, everybody
Yeah.
wants to know how the underwear Olympics are going right now.
Yeah, for sure. And if you are not a member at Horns 24/7, we cannot tell you to do this any sooner. Today is the one-day sale. We have 75% off of annual memberships. So head on over to Horns 24/7, subscribe. New members get 75% off your first year of Insider Texas Scoop. But Chip, there's a lot to talk about. I mean, since the last time we've had the Flagship Podcast, I'm gonna give a little behind the scenes note here. So last Wednesday, we're recording the Flagship Podcast, and I kid you not, I think we were maybe 2.5 minutes into the recording of it, and both of our phones started like blowing up. There's actually I posted a behind the scenes clip of it because you could see both of us literally look at our phones at the exact same time, because Texas did hire a new wide receivers coach. We did not have an episode of the Flagship Podcast last week because we were just kind of scrambling all over the place. But Texas does have a new receivers coach in Chris Jackson, who comes from the Jacksonville Jaguars. Obviously, there's a lot of Texas players that have ties to the Jacksonville Jaguars. But Chip, let's start off with your thoughts on the new hire.
Yeah, it's an interesting hire. Chris Jackson, all of his coaching experience is professional. And Steve Sarkisian told folks in his inner circle and even candidates for the job that he was looking for a receivers coach who is a technician who could really coach up the position more so than a recruiter. Now, your receivers coach always needs to be one of your top recruiters because, look, you're dealing with some high profile personalities at that receiver position. You got to be able to attract those kinds of receivers, especially Steve Sarkisian, he basically let Andre Coleman go as his receivers coach after one season because Coleman was not all about recruiting the fastest 5 stars out there. He was looking for grinders, and Sarkisian's like, no, I need Ferraris. I don't need F-150 trucks at the receiver position. And so he goes out, he brings in Brennan Marion, who did a great job in the recruiting game, bringing in Jonte Cook, Ryan Niblett, DeAndre Moore, and so the cupboard is full. I mean, you bring in Adonai Mitchell from Georgia, and I think we have a question about all this that we'll get to. But Chris Jackson can now look at this group of receivers and say, okay, I just helped take Marvin Jones Jr. and Zay Jones and the Jacksonville Jaguar receiving corps to one of their best seasons. And so if you want to know how it's done in the NFL, you all want to go there. Here I am. Let's get to work. And that's what Steve Sarkisian was looking for. And Chris Jackson played at Washington State with Jeff Banks. There's a connection there. And Steve Sarkisian feels good about it. So obviously, and Chris Jackson has a connection to Margin Hooks, who's one of the top receiver trainers in the state of Texas. And he happens to train Micah Hudson, who's a 5-star receiver in the 2024 recruiting class and the Longhorns' top target at receiver. So no pressure there, Chris. You need to close the deal on that one.
Yeah, and Micah Hudson did make it in for Texas Junior Day. There was kind of some questions, I think, surrounding him, and there was if he was going to make it or not. He was one of the first players, I think, that came in, and so he did make it into Junior Day from all accounts. This is why you need to be a member at Horns 24/7, because our guys Mike Roach and Hudson Standish were covering, the heck out of Junior Day. Had a lot of good intel, good vibes coming out of Micah Hudson's visit. But you're right. I mean, it's a tough place, I would say, Texas, in any, big time Power 5 type of college football programs. It's a tough place to recruit, and because the spotlight's always on you, and there's very little room for error. And so it's an interesting addition. I agree with you on that, Chip. But I will say that just the NFL ties, I think, really do carry weight. I mean, you look at what Texas has in Bo Davis, for instance, the defensive line coach. I mean, this season, when Keandre Coburn was talking about, if he wanted to use his extra year of eligibility, the person he was going to rely on to help kind of gauge him and direct him in that decision was Bo Davis, because Bo Davis has coached in the NFL. So there's a lot of positives that come with having that lengthy NFL experience. Obviously, Chris Jackson has pretty much only NFL experience, but it'll be interesting to see how the recruiting aspect of it. But I think when you have a lengthy NFL coaching career, that in itself plays and carries a lot of weight in recruiting. So going to be really interesting to cover him. We probably will not be able to talk to him because Steve Sarkisian does not allow us to speak to assistant coaches, but we will keep you guys updated on how that's going over at Horns 24/7. Chip, you want to get into some questions here that our Horns 24/7 members have sent in? And if you're watching on the YouTube channel or on Facebook, feel free to comment with a question, and we'll try to tackle as many that come in as the show rolls on. But we do have a number to get to from our Horns 24/7 members if you're ready for those, Chip.
Real quick, Taylor, before we get to the questions, I do want to comment on Joseph Osai, because he's all the talk today after this AFC Championship game. He was flagged for a late hit on Patrick Mahomes on the second to last play of the game. It resulted in a 15-yard penalty that moved Kansas City from the Bengals 42 to the 27-yard line. It resulted in a 45-yard field goal instead of a 60-yard field goal. Harrison Butker made the field goal, and all the talk is how could you make that play? And for those who don't know Joseph Osai, or who are just getting to know him as an NFL player, and it's unfortunate, certainly, because he was having probably his best game in his 2 years in the NFL. And last year he didn't even play because he had a season-ending knee injury in training camp, and he didn't start this year, but he got more reps as the season wore on. He had a scoop and score touchdown in January against Baltimore. And against the Chiefs on December 4th, he had a sack of Patrick Mahomes that ironically moved the Chiefs backward, and Harrison Butker missed a 55-yard field goal as the Bengals held on for a 27-24 win. So now he's getting, blasted all over the place for this. He was running as hard as he could. Mahomes, came, down the sideline, and Osai should have pulled up, but he couldn't tell where he was. He said in the field he was trying to force Mahomes out sideways to keep the clock running. Whatever. He's getting blasted. He's being compared to Chris Webber of Michigan, who called a timeout when he didn't have one in the 1993 NCAA championship game. Webber went on from that mistake to a Hall of Fame career. I think Joseph Osai is going to use this as motivation to become a Pro Bowl player for the Bengals. I'm just going to say it now. This is how this kid is wired. He's not going to shrink. He's not going to go mental on this. He's going to work even harder than he already does. And he's going to be a big time player for the Bengals. So Bengals Nation, have some patience with Joseph Osai, because he's going to end up being a really good player for you. And I think true Bengals fans know that, but today's a rough day, obviously, for Joseph Osai. One of his own teammates was recorded going into the locker room saying, what the bleep? This is my last year. Who bleeping touches the quarterback out of bounds? And it was awful. And so Joseph Osai will bounce back from this, Taylor. My 2 cents on that.
I totally agree. I mean, that it's heartbreaking. It was heart-wrenching to watch. He was bawling his eyes out afterwards. And I want to give a lot of credit to, I believe BJ Hill, it was his teammate who, was standing next to him in the locker room and essentially told reporters, like, stop with those dumb questions. Like, we're done with this right now. And I totally agree. Like, honestly, I got blasted on Twitter last night, actually, because from Bengals fans because I was standing up for Joseph Osai. Like, Chip and I have covered Joseph Osai, not just at college, but I covered him in high school. Like, I used to cover recruiting. I covered Joseph Osai. There are a handful of players, first of all, that have the character, the respect, and all of that Joseph Osai does have, and he works his butt off. Exactly what you said. I mean, this is a guy that didn't even play football, I think, until his sophomore or junior year of high school. I mean, like, he's so good. That's how talented he is. He didn't grow up playing football. This is a guy that's kind of new to the sport. And the fact that he was even in that position, like, my father-in-law is a long time football coach. And I promise you, he will be the first to say, I will take 100 players that make that one mistake that Joseph Osai made over guys that aren't playing instinctually. You want the guys that are going to ball out on the field. Yes, it was a mistake. Joseph knows it. He's taken it probably harder than anybody, but that's what coaches want. They want guys that are those dogs that are going to go above and beyond to try to make a play. And normally, Patrick Mahomes is a mobile quarterback. I know he had a little bit of an ankle injury, but like, there are quarterbacks out there where they could make one single cut, and that's a to the house touchdown, regardless if the defender does not try to hit him, And so I'm going to defend Joseph Osai till I'm blue in the face. And I don't care if people hate it. I don't care if they, think I'm stupid because I'm doing it. Like, I just know that every coach out there would be, obviously like, oh no, but at the same time, they will want a player like Joseph Osai over a guy that's not going to try to make that play. So
yeah. And what's sad is the very play before that, Osai got the pressure on Patrick Mahomes that forced an incompletion, and Jim Nantz and Tony Romo had just glowed praise on Osai for what a great game he was having. So it is what it is. He's going to have to overcome this, and it'll always be a footnote, but he can certainly rewrite it, and I think he will.
I totally agree. Absolutely. So, all right, Joseph, you have our support. We'll say that. I reached out to him even because, we've had a long time relationship from me covering him as a kid in high school. So I know he's going to bounce back and be much better after all of this too. So we're on the same page, Chip.
Yep.
Air
Yep.
pound. All right. All right. You want to get to some of our Horns 24/7 questions here?
Let's do it.
All right. I'm gonna toss this one to you first. This is from Frank. Sorry if I am butchering this. Drebin 713. Could Jonathan Brooks, Savion Red, Brendan Thompson, and Juan Davis be 2023 offensive breakouts?
Well, I certainly think Jonathan Brooks can be, and I think that Savion Red and Brennan Thompson are coming. They want Brennan Thompson to get stronger, and he certainly got the speed. And Steve Sarkisian is now getting to the point where I think he feels like he's got outside threats that force safeties to have to respect the deep ball. Last season, you could argue it was just Xavier Worthy. Next season, you're going to have 6'4", 190-pound AD Mitchell. All he's done is score touchdowns in 4 college football playoff games. And you've got 6'3" Isaiah Nair, who had 12 touchdown catches at Wyoming before a season-ending injury in camp and causing him to miss the 2022 season. And so now you got Jonte Cook in here too. I mean, we've gone from a receiver room that is thin to a receiver room now that might force Steve Sarkisian to finally rotate receivers. He's been reluctant to do that, and I think it's a credit to Sarkisian that he's kept them all, honestly, because when you add players like Jonte Cook and AD Mitchell, and look, they're going to have to earn it in practice. They're going to have to earn it every day. But this is a good problem to have. Every coach will tell you, you want as much talent as you can get, and then let the paramedics sort them out. And that's where we're headed. And so, I like Jonathan Brooks a lot. I mean, I think Jonathan Brooks, when you combine Jonathan Brooks with Cedric Baxter, CJ Baxter, there's your 1-2 punch. I know there's talk about Keelan Robinson and Jaden Blue. CJ Baxter is special, and I think this guy's going to prove it pretty quickly. And I think Jonathan Brooks is special. So the running back room might be better off than we think after losing a generational player like Bijan Robinson and a heart and soul warrior like Roshan Johnson. And then as far as Juan Davis, he's got to get bigger. He's got to get stronger. And that's the $1 million question for him. Can he handle the blocking required? They're not going to just play him as a stand-up tight end. They got to have a guy who can, do the dirty work. And that's going to be the big question for Juan Davis. Yes, he's pretty. He's fast. He's got good hands. He's got a block. And Jatavian Sanders made the adjustment. Juan Davis watched it. He knows what he has to do. And so, that's what it would take for him to be a breakout. And he needs to be ready. He's a play away. If something happens to Jatavian Sanders, you got Gunnar Helm, and then you've got Juan Davis, and then you've got some freshmen. So Juan Davis needs to be ready to go this year because he might end up being forced into playing time that could lead him to become a breakout player. I don't see it to be ready. That's for sure. We learned that last year. 2022 taught us, be ready, because you may start the season on the bench, Max Duggan.
Yeah.
On and on. But you got to be ready. And so that's the proposition for Juan Davis. What do you think, Taylor?
I mean, I tend to agree with you, Chip. I mean, I think that at least with Jonathan Brooks, like I think he is poised to be a breakout player for Texas. I think that you've seen it a little bit in the very limited time that he has in playing. But yeah, I think that he's definitely someone to watch. I with Juan Davis, Jatavian Sanders had such a breakout season this past year. I know that you know Steve Sarkisian loves to use the two tight ends in his offense too, but it's hard to say that he's going to be a breakout just because Jatavian Sanders was so good this year. And so I don't see anybody overstepping him or anything along those lines. But yeah, I think Jonathan Brooks definitely is poised for a great year. And don't forget, Jaden Blue too. I mean, this is a guy that you haven't really seen much at all for Texas. He was a true freshman last year. He was an early enrollee, didn't see the field much, obviously, because I was one of the probably the most stacked college football running back rooms in the country, honestly. And so I definitely think that, Jonathan Brooks is probably next in line. Jaden Blue also. The addition of Cedric Baxter is huge. Chip did a really good profile on Cedric Baxter. If you're a member of Horns 24/7 and read the Insider, you know all about it. If you did not, you should definitely read the Insider from Thursday of last week because Chip did a fantastic backstory about everything with Cedric Baxter and the type of work ethic, everything he brings to the table. So I think the running back room is set. I think the receiver room is set too because they're stacked. And now it's just a matter of time of guys stepping up and wanting to earn the playing time. Because that's one thing I think with Steve Sarkisian that you're starting to see is he's not just going to put a guy out there because he told him, oh, you're going to get this much X playing time, when you signed at Texas. Like they have to earn it. And I think that's something that he has proven he's going to stick to his guns. But Brendan Thompson has that breakaway speed that I think is hard to beat. Savion Red, he's an interesting guy to me because part of me thinks like, is he a linebacker? Like he's a bigger guy. But yeah, I think that, especially with a new coach, a clean slate, the opportunities are endless in that receivers room right now.
Yeah, I think Savion Red's a sort of a mini me of Jordan Whittington. And we know that Steve Sarkisian is all about the speed. And Brendan
Mhm.
Thompson's a 10 flat 100 guy. A.D. Mitchell, Xavier Worthy, Jonte Cook are all 10 flat 100 guys.
Mhm.
So that's what Sarkisian wants. He wants speed everywhere to the point where the defense they can't focus on just one guy. They have to keep the safeties back. That opens up the running game. So Texas should be what Steve Sarkisian wants to be on offense in 2023.
Yeah.
The excuses are gone
Mhm.
because you've got depth at receiver, and I think you're going to be okay at running back. I mean, you return 10 of 11 starters on offense. So, I see a question over here from um, CTE
E11.
11 saying, is there concern about playing time and keeping all those guys out of the portal? Well, that's what spring football is going to help determine. And so the first week of March, when spring ball gets going, you're going to have these guys battling it out, and they're going to see where they stack up. And if they don't stack up well, then you probably will see someone get into the portal because there's a lot of dudes in that room. And I mean, dudes like
Mhm.
dogs. And
Yeah.
you're going to find out if you're one of them.
Yeah, totally agree. And I don't know if anybody saw me kind of laughing. I'm laughing because I'm so proud of Chip for learning that he can read the comments himself too on our stream here because
I mean,
that
come on. I'm
it
a
took a
multitasker.
while. It took a
Look at
while
me.
to learn that. I know
Look at me
you just
multitasking.
you caught me off guard there, Chip. I'm proud of you though.
How about that?
Yeah. Yeah, this receiver room I think has I'm like nobody we haven't even seen what Isaiah Nayer is going to be for Texas either. Like that's, he was he was trending to be probably the breakout player I would say for the receivers last year before his injury. So that's I'm excited to see what Isaiah Nayer brings too, but all right, I'll move on
Yeah,
to
and
the next
Mitchell
one.
and Nayer both have at least 2 years of eligibility remaining.
Yep.
So, if those guys are looking like world beaters, then a guy like Casey Kane is going to have to decide, okay, I can catch those guys, I can pass those guys, or I need to be ready if my time comes, or do I need to go find another place to get playing time? So, that's what spring ball is going to be all about.
Yeah. All right. So speaking of spring practice, I'll move on to the next question here from sorry, I'm totally butchering this. Ramo Sock 88. When do spring practices start, and what position group should be one to watch going into spring? I think we kind of answered it, but go ahead, Chip. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, obviously the quarterback position is going to be enormous. Quinn Ewers needs to take a big step, and I think he took part of that step in the Alamo Bowl. I think he looked more comfortable. Now he missed a couple of big time throws in the first half, a fourth down throw, bad miss with Xavier Worthy, and then a 3rd and 3 throw that was low and away to Jordan Whittington. Those were drive killers, but then he got it going in the second half and he put the ball right on the money. And then, finally he connects with Xavier Worthy on deep balls, only to have Worthy drop the football. So that the quarterback position, the receiver position, those are going to be big time positions to watch. And then on defense, there's a bunch, because you lose some big time guys from the defensive line, from the linebacker position. You lose Anthony Cook at safety. You lose Deshaun Jameson at corner, but you have guys who started to show you that they're ready. I mean, Tavondre Sweat on the defensive line with Byron Murphy. Alfred Collins needs to finally put it all together, because he's a junior now and it's time. And then you look at a guy like Jalen Catalon coming in from Arkansas at safety. The guy was all SEC as a freshman. Injuries got him. He's had surgery to repair his shoulder, which has been a problem. If he's healthy, watch out. This guy is an instant impact guy. I think on with what Ryan Watts gave you out of the portal from Ohio State at that boundary corner. So, linebacker Anthony Hill's an early enrollee. Heck, almost the entire freshman class is an early enrollee. So you're going to get an idea. The coaches are going to get an idea of who can process everything quickly, who can digest the playbook quickly, the calls, the adjustments, and process that and play fast. And Texas, that's another reason to feel good about Texas going into the 2023 season, is that, over half of their recruiting class is early enrollees, including the top 5 players in the class: Arch Manning, Anthony Hill, CJ Baxter, Jonte Cook, and Malik Muhammad at corner. So you're getting, really important practices in for those young guys. And, remember Taylor, Kelvin Banks, who was he played at a first team all Big 12 level, came in June and got all that done. So let's see what these early enrollees can do starting when spring practice begins first week in March.
Yeah, and that's so crucial too. Like, to have that, not just have half of the class already, you know, on campus going through winter conditioning, but having some of the top guys in the class. I mean, we talked about this on our last episode of the Flagship Podcast. Um, having just Arch Manning alone, like, Texas has the class that they had because Arch Manning committed to Texas. Like, let's be honest. Like, all of the stars followed Arch Manning from the minute that he made that commitment. So he has a pull, and his voice is going to carry a lot of weight with some of the guys that even aren't on campus yet, because he's going to be able to pass along, like, this is how we prepare, this is what is expected, this is what we do here at Texas, and guys are going to listen. Guys follow Arch Manning. They follow those top talented, top prospects in this class. Like, and that's just, maybe it sounds like I'm like being a homer or something right now. I don't know, but it's the truth. Like, I think it's very factual that Arch Manning committed to Texas is why Texas is why Texas had that class that they had, the top 3. signing class in 2023. And so his word, his voice, everything carries weight with these guys. And that's you want those guys to be on campus to set the standard for the rest of the incoming freshmen. So I would say, though, with the position group to watch, I think wide receiver is one for sure on offense. And also I think I don't know. I'm like on defense, I kind of want to say like the whole secondary, honestly, just because there is some attrition there with Anthony Cook moving on, Sean Jameson moving on. Say what you will about their, any of them. They played a lot of football at Texas, and a lot of times experience is very difficult to replace. But if Jalen Catalon can stay healthy, oh, I just saw a comment come in. AJ Branch is going to sound like I'm copying what you're saying, but I'm going to give you some credit here. You're exactly right. If Jalen Catalon can stay healthy, this could be a very special defensive back room. So I would say that's a one to watch for the spring.
Yeah, and that's something that they need. If you're going to play quarters match pass coverage, there has to be great communication between the safeties, the nickel, and the corners to make sure that everybody knows who they've got at the snap. We saw it break down a couple times, really costly against TCU in a 17-10 game, where Quentin Johnston was all alone, only guy in the picture, catching a touchdown pass. That can't happen, and so that's why I think Jalen Catalon is such an important. And I think there are young guys who are coming. And obviously, I'm on the record that Derek Williams and Anthony Hill are my two favorite members of the 2023 recruiting class. Derek Williams, good heavens. I mean, the guy is a monster. Now, he's not an early enrollee, but you got BJ Allen at safety, Larry Turner Gooden. I think those guys are coming, but nothing wrong with having an experienced hand like Jalen Catalon in that room to help grow those guys up.
Yeah, for sure. And another one too is Jalen Gilbo too, and as a defensive back. I mean, he's played, he started a lot of games before his injury. So he was not on the field at the end of the year, and it was because of injury. So that's another one I think to watch even. And I don't want it to seem like we're like diminishing what Anthony Cook and Deshaun. I think Deshaun Jameson got a lot more hate than he ever deserved personally. I think Anthony Cook came in and he filled a role that he may not ever get the credit that he deserved for what he did for the secondary during the 2022 season. But that I think that there's definitely a lot of young talent though that is coming up too.
Yeah,
All right.
Deshaun Jameson had a lot of big time pass breakups last season that
He did, yeah.
You just go watch the film. He came through in some really big time situations. So yeah, I think they're really talented at corner. I mean, when you talk about Jalen Gilbo, Austin Jordan, Terrence Brooks, and Xavion Bryce, all those guys are legit. Like they haven't slacked off. They haven't thought, oh man, I'm down on the depth chart. All those guys are pushing, and that's what you want. I mean, for a while there, Texas was recruiting safeties who just settled in and accepted being 2 or 3 on the depth chart. Even guys like Tyler Owens. I mean, Xavier Alford was the one that sort of got away, but guys like, Marquise Caldwell, JD Coffey, you got to push. You got to announce yourself. You've got to show your teammates that you're that guy. And I think those young corners I just mentioned are pushing. They all want to get on the field, and I think they've earned the respect of their teammates. So Malik Muhammad has work to do because those guys are talented.
Yeah, totally agree with that, Chip. All right, I'm gonna throw you. Chip's our basketball guy. I don't know if you guys have picked up on this if you watch or listen to the Flagship podcast, but I'm not the biggest basketball person out there, so I'm going to throw this one
That's
to
what I'm
Chip
here for.
Yeah, exactly. So this is from Horns 24/7 member. I'm really apologize, guys. I'm totally butchering all of these. It's either T Rosita is 11 or Trosita is 11, but Shaka had a good run on recruiting athletic bigs. Why is there a dry spell on bigs that are legit down low with rebounding, blocks, and scoring? Chip, this is all you.
Well, I think this is a reflection of Chris Beard and his positionless basketball. He likes to have, 6'7", 6'8", 6'9" guys who can guard the perimeter. And, he wants to be able to switch 1 through 5 on defense and not have a big lumbering, 6'11", 7-footer who can't move. And so this was his MO at Texas Tech. Now the question, obviously, with Beard no longer here, is will that philosophy of positionless basketball continue? Who's going to be the coach next year? Is it Rodney Terry? Is it a coach to be named later? That's all unfolding, and we're actually in a critical part of the Texas basketball season starting tonight with Big Monday against Baylor. Baylor's won 6 in a row against Texas and 12 of the last 13. Let that sink in. Now, Baylor won a national championship 2 years ago, and they're the 2-time defending Big 12 regular season champions, and they've got one of the most talented freshmen in the country coming into Austin tonight, and Keontae George, who's averaging 17 plus points per game and is fearless. I mean, this guy's fun to watch. So this is a big challenge because it's at home for Texas. Texas has been good at home, and their only, their only conference loss at home is to K-State, and K-State's number 7 in the country. And their only road loss is Iowa State, and Iowa State is also, they were ranked when Texas lost to them. So bottom line is they got to win this game tonight, and then they got to go on the road, and they got to play K-State and Kansas in a 3-day span. K-State on Saturday, KU on Monday, both on the road. And this is the grinder right here. This is the first of 3 big Monday games for Texas. The third big Monday game after, you got Baylor, then KU, is Texas Tech on the road. That place was a horror chamber for Texas last year. Now, Chris Beard's no longer with the team. Who knows what that Red Raider army that Chris Beard built out there in Lubbock has in store for the Longhorns. They hate the Longhorns more than they like themselves. And anyone who's been to Lubbock for a game knows what I'm talking about. And Tech fans, look, you make it tough on people because of that. But this is the grinder for Texas, and coming off that loss to Tennessee, where Marcus Carr didn't even get a shot attempt until there were 5 minutes left in the first half. He and Timmy Allen both went over in the first half. Those are your 2. That cannot happen. But Tennessee is a special defensive team. Baylor leads the Big 12 in 3-point shots made. Texas is the worst defense in the conference at defending the 3-point line. So there's your storyline for this one for tonight's game. And as far as my man, or I don't want to say, could be a gal, Trocitas 11. That's why and I think if Chris Beard could have found a Kai Jones or a Jackson Hayes, he would have tried to land him. Those guys ended up being really special, and they're in the NBA now. But yeah, we'll see if that positionless basketball recruiting mentality continues.
All right, so this is a follow-up from our guy Chris GB 2000. Chip, what will Texas basketball record be in this 4-game gauntlet? Already lost to Tennessee, now play number 11 Baylor, then 7 Kansas State, and 8 Kansas.
Well, I think if you got to win this game tonight, and then if you lose at K-State and you lose at Kansas, that's not a crime. Those are top 10 teams. So you got to win your home court. And then I see them, probably losing, both of the games at K-State and KU, but Kansas has been struggling. And if they continue to struggle, then Texas can get in there and steal one. And K-State has proven to be mortal. They lost to Iowa State at Hilton Coliseum, which, again, that's probably the toughest place to play outside of Lawrence in the Big 12. So when you're playing a top 10 team on the road, you're not going to be expected to win. That would have to be a steal. So I see, having already lost to Tennessee, win tonight against Baylor, take your medicine at K-State and against KU. If you steal one, oh Lord, you don't get too excited, because then after facing Kansas, you got West Virginia on February 11th, and that's a home game. Texas needs to win that.
Yeah. All right. There's your basketball mashup here. I'm not going to contribute to it. Let's be honest. Like, I just don't cover basketball, so we'll be real here with that. But all right, we're gonna go back to football here from Longhorn SD Horns 24/7 member. I'll take this one first, and you can chime in, Chip. But in your opinion, what is the minimum bar for the 2023 season to be considered a success? I really like this question. Chip and I actually talked about it before we started the live show, because we've always been really hesitant to be, or at least I have been very hesitant to be like, set high expectations, because I just haven't felt that Texas was in a position to have high expectations, even though they have these recruiting classes. Just for various reasons, I've never felt it would be fair to the players and even the staff to put, a Big 12 title or bust type of tag on this program. And at least in the last probably 10 years, I think it's Big 12 title or bust. Like, there's no reason, in my opinion, for Texas to not have a big, like, at least not play for a Big 12 title this season. And I've never said that. Like, I can't remember a single time in my career where these words have ever actually come out of my mouth, because I've just, as good as, Tom Herman and his staff recruited skill positions, they never really got the big guys. I always was like, where's the beef? Where's the offensive linemen? Where are those guys that win you championships? The kind of the faceless players that are the unsung heroes. And that's what Steve Sarkisian and Kyle Flood and Jeff Banks and the whole staff has really put a focus on, is getting those type of guys. And I think, as I've been on the record, I have no problem saying, like, eating crow all I want about the offensive line going into the 2022 season. I was like, that was my biggest concern, because Texas was in a position to where they were going to be relying on two true freshmen, in addition to having a bevy of, young underclassmen, inexperienced guys on that line. I had very low expectations, and they far, far, far exceeded my expectations. Those guys are a year older now, and they all are pretty much returning. And so, in my opinion, I'd say the minimum bar is Texas needs to be playing for a Big 12 title this year. Chip, what about you?
Yeah, I mean, the great coaches, the coaches who have staying power, announce themselves in the first 2 to 3 years. Heck, even Tom Herman got to the Big 12 championship game in year 2. Mac Brown was in the Big 12 championship game in year 2. Steve Sarkisian should have been in the Big 12 championship game in year 2. If he'd have run the football in the fourth quarter against Oklahoma State, he wins that game, and he's in the Big 12 championship game in a rematch with TCU, having beaten K-State in the regular season and holding that tiebreaker. So that hurts, because that's a huge opportunity lost. But 10 of 11 starters back on offense. Quinn Ewers, second year in the system. You've gone from thin to full at receiver. As you mentioned, the offensive line should just continue to get better, really, from here on out. And I think the running game is going to be okay. Defensively, Gary Patterson is still helping you out as a special assistant. Pete Kwiatkowski has clearly a good line of communication with his defensive staff, which returns intact. Bo Davis obviously had a big year in 2022 with his defensive line, stopping the run. They led the nation in quarterback hurries. So quarterback pressures. So that's, yeah, I mean, it's time. It's time. We said, I said 8 wins and Arch Manning would be a success in 2022. To me, it's 10 wins and an appearance in the Big 12 title game. Really, you're the favorite. I mean, sometimes Texas is the favorite because, they recruit so well.
Right.
I mean, Oklahoma State, Spencer Sanders is at Ole Miss. TCU, Max Duggan's gone. K-State's got Will Howard back, but they lose Deuce Vaughn and they lose, Felix Anyuduke-Uzama. I don't know how he got the Big 12 Defensive Player of the Year over Jalen Ford, but he's gone.
It's like a career of win, basically.
Yeah, I mean, that was a great 1-year window for K-State, and that's why I picked them to get it done. I'm not picking them this year. Now, you can look around and see, okay, Tech, it looks like they're starting to put some stuff together, Baylor, but it's Texas. I mean, Texas, and the crazy thing is we don't have the 2023 schedule yet. Still,
Yeah.
it's 7 weeks late. And I've written about this. Another reason, if you're thinking about joining today, horns247.com with our 75% off offer. The Insider every week. I'm going to let you know what's going on, the latest with Texas and the SEC. And they're close. Texas and Oklahoma are close. Now, I say close, but that doesn't mean it's going to happen soon. But they're close enough that Oklahoma has said, we want an exit deal done before the football schedule comes out. And so kudos to my man, Joe Castiglione. He will not admit it, but that's what's going on. And so we'll see if we get a exit deal for Texas and Oklahoma before we get the 2023 Big 12 football schedule. Because Taylor, with 4 new schools coming in, you can't just say, oh, well, Texas has to go to this school this year because they played at home last year. The Big 12 can throw all that out and just do whatever they want to make this 14 team, I think 1-year situation work, which means Texas could be going places it's never been, or they could be going back on the road to places they were on the road last year. So it's still, I think it's 10 wins and an appearance in the Big 12 title game. How about you?
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's fair. And so follow up here, because this is from our another Horns 24/7 member, David Hume. Will Texas win the Big 12 in 2023? Your thoughts?
I mean, I think they should. You got Jalen Ford, who's, in my opinion, the Big 12 Defensive Player of the Year.
Yeah, the unnamed Big 12 Defensive Player of the Year. Like, it was a career award essentially given to,
the People's Choice for Big 12 Defensive Player of the Year in 2022. And he's big time. And then, Tavondre Sweat, Byron Murphy in the middle, Alfred Collins, Barron Sorrell, Justice Finkley, these guys are coming. And then Jalen Catalon, if he's the Jalen Catalon we remember from his freshman year, all these young corners come. I mean, it's time. And then Steve Sarkisian is telling people privately he's got the talent now, the speed at receiver that he needs for this offense to click the way that he expects it to click, the way it did at Alabama. And so now it's on Steve Sarkisian to put it all together. And, we've talked about whether he needs someone in his ear, someone he trusts, who will say, hey, don't throw it here, run it here. We're still fine. We can run it. And that, to me, got away from him a little bit at Texas Tech and Oklahoma State last year. It cost him after having, 31-17 leads in those games. But, we'll see. Steve Sarkisian says, hey, everything's great. Everything's good. Now, he is looking for a special assistant on offense, and I think he's hoping to get, a coach who's been let go somewhere, a head coach, kind of like Saban always does. So we'll see if he can reel in someone like, a Seth Luttrell who was let go at North Texas. We'll see.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I
I think
think
there's
they'll
no
win the Big 12 in 2023. I'm going to pick them.
Okay. Yeah, I think there's no excuse at this point. I really do. I think and again, I am the last person who has ever said this, honestly, in my career. I've never said that Texas, since I started covering Texas, that they should win the Big 12. Like, I just haven't done it. I haven't felt that way. I haven't felt that, that their teams have been stacked up in a way to actually sustain a whole season and win the Big 12. I didn't think they had the right depth. I thought there was depth at some positions, but key positions did not. And there was a lot of talent at some positions, and some positions did not have very much talent at all. And yeah, I think this is the year. It has, and I think you're going to learn a lot about Steve Sarkisian himself as a coach this year because of all of that, because there is no excuse. And I know that there were questions when he came on as the head coach at Texas, since he had not been a head coach since, the fiasco that happened at USC. He's a different guy now. And I think everyone's still wondering who he is as a head coach. And I think this season is going to be the season that tells you who Steve Sarkisian is as a head coach. But I think that Texas has no excuse not to win the Big 12 in 2023.
Well, and I think his culture is on the right track. I mean,
Yes.
he's not losing players that he is counting on to the portal. The players fought through the loss at Oklahoma State, went on the road, beat K-State the next week. At that point, you're thinking, okay, all right, well, Texas is, maybe they have what it takes to beat TCU. That was a tough game, but you shouldn't look back at the TCU game and say you had first and goal at the 2, first and goal at the 5, and Bijan Robinson doesn't get a single touch in either of those series. And you cannot have the questions about your team and the Monday morning quarterbacks asking about the offense if you're Steve Sarkisian, because that's your side of the ball, and you were hired at the time to match wits with Lincoln Riley, who seems to make it effortless in his ability to call the offense and be a head coach. Now, if you talk to people at Oklahoma, they'll say that Riley maybe spends too much focus on the offense, and it lets the culture, start to break a little bit, that there were, I don't know. All I know is the guy won, and he was this close again to go into the college football playoff in his first year at USC, and he had the Heisman Trophy winner at quarterback. So Steve Sarkisian was hired to match wits with that guy. And now Lincoln Riley's getting, yeah, he may not be in the conference, but he's still the guy that Steve Sarkisian's being compared to.
Yeah, for sure. So this is a random one from our YouTube channel that I think is actually really, it's not Texas specific, but it's very interesting. I'm going to put this one up here. Anything fishy with Brian Kelly and the extra $1 million that he got paid in his first few months on the job? I don't know if people know the backstory of this, but apparently Brian Kelly was overpaid by $1 million for several months. I'm going to go ahead, Chip, and say, yeah, there's something fishy going on there, because mainly just because the timing of which this money was paid, it just so happened to happen when official visits started in the off season. It was like, I think it was from May through, I don't know, 6 months after. I'm not good at math. I'm not very smart, guys, if you can't tell, but I think it was May through November that he got paid this. That is prime official visit season. Seems a little fishy to me. Your thoughts?
Listen, I mean, dating back to the days of Huey Long, Louisiana politics has been, you got to sleep with your eyes open. If this was a banking error, what the hell does that say about LSU's administration, for God's sake?
I mean, it's a school that has historically didn't have money. So how did they just misplace $1 million? Like, that doesn't happen, does it?
Right. And that, if you make a banking error like that, you're going to get questions like the one you just raised, especially in the age of NIL. When have we ever heard of a head coach being overpaid by $1 million?
For
Hell,
6
Michigan
months
cut Jim
too.
Harbaugh's pay because he was not winning enough. And now he's still pissed at the athletic director for giving him that haircut, to the point where he keeps interviewing for other head coaching jobs. And as a way to send a message to Michigan's president, hey, get me a new bleeping athletic director, please. But yeah, there's fishiness here. Um, and rightfully so. I mean, look, the taxpayers of Louisiana should be like, hey, what the bleep where else are we making that banking error? Where
Yeah,
are our tax dollars going? Now, athletics pays for itself. They don't use tax money.
right.
But yeah, that was a what?
Yeah. And I mean, I can smell the fish from freaking Austin, Texas, from the bayou in Louisiana there in Baton Rouge.
Yeah, and
Like
this is
that
not
was
the red
like,
snapper
no,
with the
this is that
etouffee.
yeah, this is like
Yeah.
the bottom feeders that are bottom feeding over bottom feeding. So yeah, I thought that question was funny. I know it has nothing to do with Texas, but I thought it was really funny. I wanted to hear your thoughts on that. Chip and I had never even spoken about this, so this is totally off the cuff. We didn't expect to take that question, but yeah,
Yeah, I mean,
that fish smells
$1
stanky out
million,
here. I'll say that.
$1
Yeah,
million.
from one
Come
of
on.
the poorest like
Right.
universities. Like, come on. Oh, goodness gracious. You never know what you're going to get here on the Flagship Podcast, y'all. That's why you got to tune in here. But all right, back to Texas. Sorry, that diversion there. Let's see here. I'm going to go with, we kind of touched on this. LTC 1948 had asked, why hasn't the Big 12 released the 2023 football schedule? Chip kind of talked about that a little bit. So I wanted to at least give credit for people that do send in their questions ahead of time in case we don't like acknowledge them at the time. But how about this one from Mikey Gress 6? Any updates on the hiring of an offensive special assistant to the head coach and an assistant director of high school relations?
Yeah, nothing yet. I mentioned Seth Luttrell because I think he's an intriguing candidate as the former head coach at North Texas. Now, he played running back at Oklahoma. And so, that's always tricky because it's like that story Rodney Terry told this past week when he was an assistant at Baylor, and then he went to UNC Wilmington, but he really wanted to be at Texas. And there were rumblings that maybe Rick Barnes was looking at him, but Kelvin Sampson at Oklahoma at the time offered a job to Rodney Terry. And Kelvin Sampson is the truth. I mean, that dude has won everywhere he's been. He actually kind of owned Rick Barnes while he was at OU. And Frank Haith was an assistant at Texas at the time and said, Rodney, don't you take that job at OU if you ever want to coach at Texas. And Rodney passed on it. And fortunately for Rodney, Barnes came around, hired him. They had a 9-year run together. Now Rodney's the acting head coach at Texas. So I get it's kind of weird. And things worked out perfectly for Gary Patterson. And I mean, the timing of it, not for Gary Patterson to be fired, but
Right.
he became available, let's say, at a great time. And with the connections that he had, he came right to Texas. And, so I think Steve Sarkisian's looking high and low. I mean, I know he's looked everywhere from high school, college, and I think he's looking at the NFL too. So I think he's waiting for the coaching carousel to come to a close here in the NFL
Yeah.
before he makes any final decision. Now, spring football is starting first week in March, so I would imagine we'll have something by then. But I think Sarkisian's taking his time and checking to see, what's out there.
Yeah. And the other thing too, like The primary staff that he wanted to hire was a receivers coach, and that took a little bit longer than expected because Chris Jackson was coaching in the NFL, coaching the Jacksonville Jaguars receiver core there. So that's, I think that priority number one has, like, that box has been checked off, and this is where, and also the other one is the director of high school relations with Texas hiring Jamal Fenner, a local high school football coach, has great ties in the state of Texas to other high school football coaches, programs, everything. That's what you want in your director of high school relations. So these were, I would say it was like tier one, tier two. Now we're on to kind of tier three is probably where Steve Sarkisian's mindset is. So I would say that those ones are coming in. And you bring up a great point when it comes to, the NFL coaching, carousel, circle, whatever it may be. I think that is going to work itself out. But um, what about Joe Brady? Where is he at? I saw somebody say something about Joe Brady.
Yeah, I mean, and that's where the other thing too, Taylor, is the NCAA was this close to approving a rule that would allow any institutional staff member to coach during the week in practice, not on game day, but during the week. And then that got tabled at the NCAA convention in January. But there's a sense that it's going to be passed in the spring. And that also, when you're hiring these special assistant or analyst positions, you want to pick a person who might be able to help out at a position where you think you need help. And so, we'll see. I mean, there've been some interesting candidates I'm not going to mention because I don't want to put those people in a interesting position with their current jobs. But there's an intriguing possibility out there that we're kind of waiting on. And so I think Sarkisian's knocked it out of the park with his hires up to this point. So let's see what he does.
Yeah, for sure. This one's coming in here from the YouTube channel here from David Williams. There's always talk about name, image, and likeness, funding going to new recruits. Will UT and other programs begin hiring a general manager to manage funding for players to remain at UT? I kind of think, Chip, I think the biggest priority right now with NIL should probably be getting these athletes tax help. This is something you and I talked about before it even went into effect. But I did see a report recently about, I think it was The Athletic that reported it, that there's been a lot of athletes that don't feel that they have enough fund or help when it comes to getting, name, image, likeness, money, and tax help and guidance for that. And that was always my biggest thing, honestly, with NIL, because I know business owners that don't know how to do their own taxes. And so you're talking about, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, young adults that definitely probably don't know, and they may not have the guidance for it that even adults have. And so I would hope, my just personal opinion, I hope that maybe there's a general manager, but the biggest thing for me is the tax thing, because you don't want to get into tax debt. That's always been my biggest concern with NIL, honestly. These players deserve to earn money off of their name, image, and likeness. Even high school players, I think, deserve to earn money off of their name, image, and likeness. I wouldn't be surprised if when the Texas legislature, meets this year, if that is not something that is on the thing. Just from what I've talked to with agents, they believe that is happening. That's probably going to be a key initiative that they're going to try to work through at the legislature level. But whether it's a general manager, whether it's tax, something, I do think that they need to start implementing further help for these individuals and for these athletes to guide them when it comes to how they are getting paid, not just getting paid and coming to a school. I think this is a long-term thing that can follow them for the rest of their lives. And I think that's really should be, I hope, it's priority number one.
Yeah, it's a great point that no one really thinks about. And, as far as the general manager, we are seeing this position pop up. It's not the director of player personnel. It's a general manager type of role. And so, some schools are using their director of player personnel in this role, but you have to pay attention to how your UIL funding or UIL, your NIL funding is being distributed, because I think we've seen, if you promise, if you dangle stuff for recruits, it can backfire on you. I think there's a baseline that everybody's trying to say, hey, you come here, you're going to earn this. We've seen it at schools like Texas Tech and SMU. If you come here, you're going to make 45,000 every scholarship football player. Okay, that's a huge commitment, and you better have the money to back it up, because you're one bad season away from that NIL funding drying up, and you cannot keep going back to your big money boosters. They get tired. They pay for the new stadiums, they pay for the new facilities, and then you want them to pay for the NIL funding. And I know the
Coaches
Texas One
buyouts, as
Fund.
Texas knows.
Yeah, and unless Texas plans on overpaying Sarkisian $1 million for him to use for NIL funding. No, I'm kidding. Not really. But you got to be careful. And I know the Texas One Fund is trying to get Texas fans to commit to $50 a month, $100 a month. They're not trying to break the bank. They want you to like be a Netflix customer and just put it on your credit card, $50 a month, and it gets charged, and you get credit for helping to fund Texas's NIL money, which they're using to help all student athletes at Texas, all 500 of them, and not just have it be all football, all basketball, or all revenue sports. So, and Texas has the Texas One Fund, which is nonprofit, and then it has the Clarkfield Collective, which is for profit. We don't know what the Clarkfield Collective is paying. They're the ones that tend to write the bigger checks when you hear about Xavier Worthy sticking around or Jalen Ford sticking around. But everything has to go through compliance. Now, they don't let us see these contracts because it's personal, which is ridiculous. But anyway, I'm rambling. But yeah, that general manager, you're seeing it become more of a thing.
Yeah. And I will say to our viewers and our listeners here, the just even getting like open records reports actually coming through and not sent to the attorney general basically has been a bit of an issue. And I think a lot of it has to do with NIL because that all goes through compliance. I mean, I can't tell you how many open records requests I've put in at Texas I've been denied or just passed along saying that it needs to get approval from the attorney general. A lot of them aren't honestly worth me going through that hassle because we have to actually the process, the legwork to get little information like that. We'll trust our sources more so than anything. But yeah, I just to touch on that, I think that the fact that we can't see this information is kind of alarming, but ramble on there. But all right, next one, Chip, for you. Timetable from Hit 'em Horns. Hit 'em Horns 18, timetable for the football indoor practice facility.
Yeah, I think the announcement is coming at any time. I've written about this extensively in the Insider over the past 6 months about the new indoor practice facility. It will be just south of DKR. They're going to move it from Denius Fields over where where the old, very old School of Social Work is located. The holdup has been obviously finding a temporary home for the School of Social Work, which will eventually move in to the Macomb School of Business building on Speedway when the new Macomb School of Business, which is being built over where the Dolby Theater, Dolby Apartments were, and that will take 4 to 5 years. But the School of Social Work needs to find a temporary home until they can move in, to the Macomb School of Business on Speedway, and so the indoor practice facility probably won't be ready until sometime in 2025. But it's going to happen, and so and Taylor, if you kind of walk the ground over there, it slopes. Where the Moody Center is on Deadman, it kind of angles down to San Jacinto. And that's going to allow Texas to go underground, so that it's not some massive structure 60 feet in the air. They're going to go down into the ground and keep it low key. You'll have your 2 practice fields outside, but the indoor part of it will be, you'll be going down into it, which is really a huge expense. They did this for the Moody Center. They had to go 60 feet in the ground, and it's all rock in Texas. So it's going to be more expensive than they initially thought, but it sounds like it's going to be pretty freaking cool. And no, there will be no indoor track. There will be no indoor track for the track team in that facility. So I know my man Eddie C had asked about that, but we're going to wait on the indoor track facility.
Yeah. There was a second part of this question, so I feel like I don't want to disregard it or anything, but Hit 'em Horns 18 also asked a bonus for me and also for you, Chip. I know the answer to this. I'm not sure if you do, but it says bonus for Taylor, regular starting outfield for the 1969 Miracle Mets, left field, center field, and right field. Do you want me to answer? Or do you want to take a stab at it? I would like to know if you know this actually, Chip.
Oh, heck no. I mean, your dad played on the 69 Miracle Mets. Was the only rookie along with Nolan Ryan. I mean,
this literally came out the other day. It's a Sports Illustrated thing. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Yeah. I mean, this would be a horrendous, fault on our part to have anyone other than you answer this question. Heck, you were at the 50th anniversary of the Miracle Mets World Series championship. So take it away.
All right. So this member here, Hit 'em Horns 18, did give a hint. Not going to call you out by saying you're wrong, but if we're talking about the opening day lineup, your hint is a little off. But it was Tommy Agee, the legendary center fielder for the Mets, Cleon Jones, who's one of my favorite people in literally the entire world. He was the starting left fielder. And it was actually Rod Gasper, my dad, who was the starting right fielder. However, Ron Swoboda came on in a huge way and made honestly one of the best catches in the history of baseball, literally the best catch in the history of baseball that I've ever seen. That season, he took over as the starting right fielder. So it started Rod Gasper right field, my dad, and it ended Ron Swoboda right field.
Boom. There you go. You ever want to know something about the 69 Miracle Mets? You talk to Taylor.
Yeah, it's basically ingrained in my brain.
She's practically you're practically a bat girl on that team. I mean,
seriously,
even though you weren't born for however many years later, but
like 18 years, I think. Yeah.
It's a cool story.
It is. He's a lot cooler than I am, guys. I hate to break it to you. I wish I could be as cool as my dad, but I'm not. So, but Chip and him have met and they've liked to have conversation about baseball, and Chip likes to talk about it a lot too. So
Yeah, and speaking of baseball, I mean, I think this is going to be a really, I mean, when David Pierce says interesting year for Texas baseball, I don't know I mean, they're not in the top 25, the D1 baseball top 25, because Texas, I mean, David Pierce overhauled his staff. We know he let go of his long time, um, assistants and brought in new pitching and hitting coaches, and Troy Tulowitzki's really helping USA baseball now more than Texas baseball. So there's a sense that Texas is like in rebuild mode, and they are when you lose your record number for home runs in a season. Um, it's it's a mystery. So I don't know what to expect from Texas baseball, honestly. I mean, you need Lucas Gordon and Tanner Witt to be unbelievable on the mound. But then you got to find a third starter, you got to find your middle relief and your closer. And oh yeah, we've got to replace 50% of our offense. So more than that, actually. So it's we'll see how David Pierce's culture, how strong it is, how it's carried over by the returning players. I mean, you do have some studs, and that's a couple of them I just mentioned, but you may have the best catcher in the country, in Silas Arduan. So we'll see. And you've got a great outfield. It's a veteran outfield, but you've got to there's a lot of position talent that needs to be replaced. You lost Faltini at shortstop as well, so um, it's gonna be fun. See what David Pierce has here.
yeah, it is, and I think that I kind of like that they're not ranked. If I'm honest, I kind of like that they are going to have to prove themselves, and I feel like David Pierce has done a really exceptional job in making his teams play together and prove themselves, honestly. And so I really do think it's gonna be a fun baseball season to watch. Chip, anything else you want to add or discuss on here?
No, make sure if you're not a member of Horns 24/7, take advantage of this 1 day offer. It is the biggest discount, 75% off.
Yeah.
Um, so jump in. I mean, it's almost free for you to get in for a year, to be on top of everything, to be an insider
Hmm.
on all things Texas, especially with the move to the SEC coming up and all the. I mean, football season never ends. We're always bird dogging what's going on with winter workouts, summer workouts, fall camp, stuff that you're not going to find anywhere else. So jump in, take advantage of this today. Treat yourself, or treat your um, I don't know what people would be doing watching this if they weren't diehard fans, but I was going to say treat your significant other or treat a friend, but treat someone, because 75% off. That's too good to pass up, Taylor. And of course, we'll be back midweek on the Flagship Podcast.
Yes, and when Chip says it's the best offer, like normally this is only the Black Friday offer or the Cyber Monday offer that we do, the 75% off. It's normally so sometimes do 50% off sometimes, so sometimes like twice a year maybe do 60% off. Typically this is a one time, and it's usually around Black Friday and Cyber Monday. They're 24/7 decided to do a different type of approach this year. So this is a like I'm like, I'm not lying. Like this is probably the last time that you're going to be able to have this offer even available until November or December. So definitely want to take advantage of that. And we want to thank everybody for listening. I mean, goodness, like we've been rambling on for an hour and 20 minutes, Chip, and these viewers, these listeners have really stuck along. So we always appreciate all of y'all. You guys help us be able to talk sports and enjoy doing it too.
Yeah, please click subscribe to the Horns 24/7 YouTube channel. Give us a 5-star rating wherever you listen to your podcasts. And we'll be back. We'll be back midweek. Until then, as Taylor said, thanks so much for listening. We'll see you over at horns247.com. Stay safe and keep the faith.